Interrupting someone else's business at 191. Rained on parades. Or Hippocratic Oath. Two running plots in this one see Worf, first in the B-plot, having a hard time transitioning from security officer as he thinks he's doing Odo's job for him, nabbing Quark in a black market deal, only to find out he's working with Odo and Worf needs to stay in his lane. It appears by the end he and Odo have a better understanding of each other. But the tensions will rise again in the future. In the feature part of the episode, Miles and Julian receive an emergency signal while in a runabout in the Gamma Quadrant, and end up taken prisoner by the Jem'Hadar, but not your ordinary Dominion puppets, seeking to break free of the Founders, led by one who had already overcome Ketracel white withdrawal on this planet. Despite Miles' protest, Julian is bound and determined to help these de facto enemies. For the only time, he even pulls rank on O'Brien to no avail as Miles foils the whole thing and causes the Jem'Hadar first to slaughter his own men. Julian doesn't bring him up on charges, but the incident strains their bromance a little. This is one of Trek's greatest moral gray area episodes, done well all around, even wrapping up with Sisko giving Worf a Shades of Grey speech. It's one of the only times in the series you actually feel bad for the Jem'Hadar. Number 190 has a magnetic personality in Self-Sacrifice, or Minefield. During everyone's favorite morning talk show, Breakfast with Archer, Lieutenant Reed proves he has the personality of a wet sack of potatoes. Enterprise thinks it's headed to an unexplored Class M for some shore leave, when we learn the Romulans have cloaking technology much earlier than previously thought. As Enterprise hits a series of cloaked mines, one of which becomes Reed's problem to disarm on the hull. It takes Enterprise till the third episode of the second season to really dig deep into Malcolm's backstory. But here we are, with a Romulan mine attached to the hull through his leg. And what his pride got in the way of letting anyone in before now, Reed finally unloads on Captain Archer as they attempt to defuse both the mine and a tense situation with the Romulans at the very first meeting of the races. Johnny pulls off some brilliant maneuvers that save Reed and allow them to limp away with their lives from a Romulan-controlled planet. All in all, a very moving main character story, proving its intentions at 189, The Whole Truth, or Heart of Stone, in two concurrently running plots about characters revealing truths about themselves that really help move them forward a third of the way through DS9's run, of which the traditional B-plot with Nog convincing Sisko his Ferengi tradition of choosing a trade and purchasing your way in goes towards wanting to become the Federation's first Ferengi cadet. Meanwhile, Odo uses his deductive reasoning skill to free a trapped Nerys, and eventually to discern that it's just the female changeling testing him, and getting an early reveal of his feelings for the real Kira. There's a ton of amazing dialogue in this one between Ben and Nog and Kira and Odo, advancing to the next stage of life at 188. Great monologues, or imperfections. As the crew say goodbye to the Borg children, Seven starts to feel a bit of empty nest syndrome. With only Icheb remaining, Seven cries for the first time, but not because of the loss of her kids, but as a sign her Borg cortical node is shutting down. The whole episode really does a great job of portraying what people with a tough or terminal diagnosis go through, and in Seven's case, a proclivity towards pushing people away that are trying to help her. The crew go grave robbing a destroyed cube for a slightly used cortical node, only to find out they have to take it from a live Borg. While Janeway is always ready for a good Borg hunt, Icheb forces the issue about giving up his, since he's still young enough to probably recover without it. And when Seven refuses, he takes it out on his own. There's some amazing talks between crew members in general that make this episode a pleasure to watch. Foiling the bad guy's plan at 187? Die Hard on a Starship, or Starship Mine. At face value, this is a pretty standard 80s, early 90s plot of the bad guys trying to get away with something, while one daring main character stops them. In this case, it's Picard, but there's more to this. Between Data trying to understand the art of small talk with a windbag commander, or randomly bringing back Jean-Luc's love of horses, there are some great character advancement moments, along with a perfectly paced episode with a ticking clock for Picard and the bad guys in the form of the Enterprise undergoing a barium sweep to remove radioactive particles that build up from warp. We even get Tim Russ in his first performance in the franchise, as one of Picard and the sweep's victims. The planetside held hostage bits are weak at times, and I'm not sure why when Riker causes a diversion, they don't just kill him like the other windbag commander, except plot armor. But this is a wonderful hour of television I could recommend to anyone and not just Trekkies. Getting into character at 186, playing the part, or vaulting ambitions. A ton of plots converge during Discovery's first foray into the Mirror Universe, as Burnham embraces her Terran counterpart and presents the traitor Lorca to Emperor Georgiou. Paul is stuck in the Mycelia network, not having a good time, and even sees a flash of Hugh, who we'll get back to in Season 2. Tyler's also not doing well, and Saru asks their prisoner Laurel to help, and she performs some kind of procedure to integrate his two consciousnesses, as we learn Ash Tyler is also Voke, the Klingon torchbearer. Both Mirror and Prime Universe Stamets wake up in the other's body, and this is where we also discover all the Mycelia are dead, and if something isn't done to stop the Terran flagship Karen, all life in all universes will cease to exist. So, no pressure there on our heroes or anything. There's so many different things happening, there's no way even the worst disco detractor can't find something to like about this episode. Looking ahead at 185, clairvoyance, or visionary. As a shock to absolutely no one, Miles O'Brien wakes up suffering, and Julian standing over him. After a plasma conduit blowout, he gets a dose of radiation that will play a big part in the main story. He starts seeing flashes of a few hours in the future, which culminates in the station exploding. In the original I Hate Temporal Mechanics moment, Miles uses his knowledge of the future to put right what once went wrong. And just like Sam Beckett, he would never make the leap home, instead sending one of his temporal selves back, because Prime Miles dies from radiation poisoning. It's a really crazy, great sci-fi plot, and it's so worth a little suffering for the Chief. The Romulans are behind the whole thing, all under the guise of getting promised intel on the Dominion in exchange for the Defiance cloaking device. When they're interviewing Kira, she reminds me of pilot episode Emissary Kira, getting super animated at the Provisional Government. A great episode of time shenanigans. Closing out our block today at 184, Back in the Shadows, or crossover. Whether or not you think the Mirror Universe has been overutilized, you have this episode to thank for resurrecting the TOS classic. And it's done in even better fashion. As with several other episodes of the series, we open to Bashir Bashiring himself up to Kira. Just as they think they're getting home from the Gamma Quadrant, a malfunction causes their trip through the wormhole to end up in the territory of the Klingon-Cardassian Alliance, where Nerys is at first mistaken for the overlord of the sector, her double, the Intendant, which really gives Nana a chance to show off her acting range in this one. I love how Julian finally gets his smug face rubbed in his own privilege as he's put to work with other Terran slaves. As we find out, power dynamics have shifted in the century since Kirk paid a visit to this universe. And we find out it was even his fault for convincing Spock here that peace can be the answer, which turns out badly for the Terrans since they pissed off so many races before trying to unify the galaxy. Avery Brooks gets a great chance to Avery Brooks as his alternative self. That won't live much past this episode. Kira and Julian awaken a rebellious spirit in the Terrans and help them take control of Terok Nor, before using the wormhole to get home. This fun episode opens the door to a lot of interesting plots through the run of DS9.
Ah, computer.
That program is available.
Thanks, Major. Thanks, Major.
The high level of atmospheric ionization is inhibiting transporter lock.
Thanks, Major.
Authorization acknowledged. Auto shutdown sequence in progress.
Thanks, Major.
Primary power offline in 1 minute.
Thanks, Major.
Primary power offline in 30 seconds.
Thanks, Major.
Final warning.
Consume your soul all through the good times and also the bad. These are the best friends I've ever had. Love is eternal and it sprouts wings.